Suds? Let's get into these books that I read in May. The Good, the Bad, and the Unhinged Take. I read a variety of books, and I consistently have very strong opinions about them that I love to shout from the rooftop. So let's get started. So I read 6 books in May. These books were selected based on a TBR game that me and my partner play every month, which I will go into detail about in a different video. And then I'm also a part of some book clubs, which I'll tell you more about in a different video as well. And that's how I come up with my list for the TBR. So anyway, let's go through these books that I read and my thoughts on each. Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. So I watched the show first on HBO. Fucking wild, and I got sucked in immediately. I'm in the fandom. I love Connor's story. I love Hudson Williams. It's done so well. I am obsessed, and that's fine. This is like the gay hockey romance, which while I was prepping for this video, I was thinking about it, and I actually have read another gay hockey romance that I actually think is different and better. It's called Pucking Around, and that's a Why Choose romance, which is different, so pin in that for later. Anyway, Shane Hollander, Ilya Rozanov are the hottest up-and-coming NHL players. I think it would have been really, really easy for Rachel Reed to do a grumpy sunshine trope. And I think she did a really nice job of having them be different people, but having a very commonality, which is that they're both batshit insane because they're professional athletes. I think that is oftentimes forgot about, is that they are professional athletes, and to become a professional athlete, especially the best of your sport, you have to be kind of crazy in a very, very specific way. And they're both so intense about it, and I love it. And that's kind of like this guiding principle of the book. Anyway, it is a very unique book in the sense that they get together in this like very secretive way, right? It's a queer relationship, and they play hockey, and the NHL is this very homophobic sport, and the world is still rather homophobic, but they have to get together in secret. And so I do think that while it is smut, and I'm not going to say it's not smut, the sex scenes do drive the story forward. It's not just a sex scene for the sake of a sex scene. It shows these stolen moments that these two men get to have together and explore this queer relationship that they can't have outside of the bedroom because it is so frowned upon. It lays this groundwork for them to have this emotional slow burn, like, because shocker, they fall in love. And I just think that Rachel does this in such a very beautiful way. The characters are lovable. You start caring about their well-being, and partially, I probably care more about them because I'm imagining Connor's story and Hudson Williams as the characters, and I love them as people. But my overall thoughts on this book is that it is worth reading if you really want this like nice, easy, predictable romance, right? You know they're gonna get together. You know what you're in for. It is spicy. If you don't like spice, I do not recommend this book. There is some other book out there for you. I'm sure of it. Not this one. So my second book that I read in the month of May was Imposter by L.J. Ross. So this is a crime novel that follows Dr. Alexander Gregory, who's a psychologist that works with the criminally insane. So I read this book because my friend read it and said that she really liked it, and I also have this like really weird obsession with Criminal Minds. Anything that has like a psychological component to it, count me in, I'm gonna read it. Dr. Alexander Gregory basically like started the behavioral analysis unit at the like UK version of the FBI. I don't know what it is. Basically used criminal profiling for some pretty big cases, and there was some drama with it, and so that's kind of information that you get almost right away. Being seen as of a body being found, and we then get launched into this world of like crime, serial killer on the loose, maybe, and all of this is happening in a small town in Ireland, and small town in Ireland is really giving small town Midwest vibes to me because everybody knows everybody. No one wants to share details. It's very, very don't rock the boat. So anyway, the mayor is this woman named Margaret Bryn. She goes by Maggie in the book, and she realizes that they need help. And so she calls in Dr. Alex Gregory because he is a criminal profiler. And she calls him in. He comes in and is met immediately with this like, oh no, we're a small town and you're an outsider. And then there's also this underlying component of not that he wasn't successful at being a criminal profiler, but there was like a case that went awry. And so the public in general is just very doubtful of him and his abilities at this point, like criminal profiling in general. Throughout the story, there is a subplot about one of the patients that Dr. Gregory has. Her name is Kathy Jones, back in the UK in the hospital, and she is cuckoo bananas. She killed her children in some of the most absolutely horrific ways that you can imagine, and she doesn't ever say why. I don't think that she actually thinks that she killed them. Anyway, so he's trying to figure out why she did it. That's like his entire life's purpose right now, is he is trying to figure out why she killed her children. I thought this was one of the more frustrating storylines because I just wanted to focus on that storyline. I didn't really care about the Ireland murders, which that sounds terrible, but I didn't really care. I wanted to know more about Kathy and what she did, how she got there, and what the heck was going on with that situation. Alas, that's not the story. So, the mayor of the town of Ireland, she had her two sons, Niall and Connor. One of them is the head of the criminal investigation unit for the whole country, and the other one is the chief of police for the small town. Obviously, Dr. Gregory sniffs this out immediately and is like, hey, we probably shouldn't have all the family in the gang trying to solve a murder because it happened in this town and everyone's a suspect. And anyway, so we follow Dr. Alex as he really goes through this investigation, and we try to figure out what happened. There's more secrets in a small town. There's so much drama that unravels, both internal family drama, external to the family, within the town, history that happens. And we jump back and forth between this current investigation and then his patient Kathy, and maybe they're interconnected, but maybe they're not. It's very interesting. There is a resolution to this book. I'm not going to tell you what it is, obviously, but I really appreciate when crime novels have a good resolution because it feels very satisfying. I'm not saying that I'm happy with the resolution, but there is a resolution. So I didn't think that it was this crazy twisty novel. Wasn't crazy shocked by them either. So it was pretty okay. Overall, it's a really formulaic crime novel. So if you really want to have something that you can just kind of go into and know what's gonna unfold in the structure of it, this is a great book for you. I did get confused by the naming convention because it's Dr. Alexander Gregory. So the author actually refers to him as Dr. Gregory, Dr. Alex, and Greg interchangeably throughout the novel, and it is very confusing at some points. So I gave this book 3 stars. It's kind of forgettable, but it was a good book overall. Okay, book 3 that I read in May was Is This a Cry for Help by Emily Austen. So my partner read this book and said that it was pretty solid. So I've heard a lot of good things from it on Instagram and Goodreads. It just came out in January of this year, so it's pretty new. We meet Darcy, who is a librarian, which full stop, I'm committed. I love that. I love librarians. I love libraries. So she's recently coming back from a mental health crisis that she had to take time off of work for. And what did she have to take a mental health break for? Her ex-boyfriend, Ben, died. And she kind of became slightly obsessed with remembering the relationship. And none of that's a spoiler. It's in the blurb on the inside of the cover. But I think that the distinction is very important that she wasn't obsessed with him. She was obsessed with remembering the relationship, and she felt a lot of guilt about it. And so she went a little bit off the rails. You learn throughout the book about the relationship. You learn about how they got together, when they were together, how they broke up, how she lived her life afterward. And the only spoiler that I will give you is that I fucking hated Ben, and he is slightly predatory. And so didn't love that. But I digress. Anywho, Darcy has to deal with the public a lot as a public librarian. And if you have never dealt with the public because you've never had to work a service job, then congratulations. People are crazy, and they want crazy shit from people in service positions. So Darcy has to deal with a lot of that. We do open with a scene of a man watching porn in a public library. And when I say watching porn, I do only mean consuming it with the eyeballs and ears. There is no action associated with the consumption of this pornography. Bold move, my guy. And people are obviously like a little riled up about it, upset about it. We have a lot of, oh no, let me clutch my pearls and complain about this because how dare someone do that. I get it. Like, that's kind of wild and it is a choice. But if you take like the 2 seconds it takes to step back and be like, what is a public library for? It is a house of uncensored media, right? That's ultimately what it should be. And they say it in the book, like, watching porn in the library is kind of like your right to have, because we can't censor it. Like, if we censor this, then we have to censor what else? When will it stop, right? With several different like initiatives like DEI and social that the library is having to deal with, and there are some people that are really bringing a lot of hate towards those initiatives, and that's where we meet Declan Turner, who is, I'll say, like the antagonist of this book. He is this anti-woke warrior that makes it his entire personality to be this absolutely annoying piece of shit and just hate on everything and everyone that doesn't look exactly like him or have the exact thoughts that he has. And we all know the Declan Turners of the world, and it's annoying because you're like, can no one just have a good time? The answer is no if Declan Turners of the world are in charge, because no joy, absolutely none. But anyway, Darcy is really just this like endearing character that, since we are the reader and we're following Darcy, we get to hear her internal monologue, and you start to really see how she like processes the world around her. She's like very clearly somewhat on the spectrum in some capacity, because she looks at things very literally, and then she has to kind of like work her way into understanding how other people might feel about that situation. And I think that's just a very nice way to show someone who may be autistic and have good coping skills with how to function in the world. And it's not going to happen perfectly every time, but I thought that it was a really cool way to see the internal dialogue of processing those situations from someone who potentially is on the spectrum. But as we kind of go through the story with like Ben, and then how she meets her current partner, and it feels like there's so much growth that can happen. Really just thought that this was a really relatable story. It felt like the storytelling was very clear. The storytelling had great pacing. Emily Austen does a really nice job of giving you the information that you need when you want it, and not too much information. She does also a really good job of taking these like controversial topics and putting them in the book without making the book about them. She doesn't just add it for like the sake of like quote unquote wokeness. She makes it have a purpose. She makes it seem like it's something that happened in real life, because we do interact with all of these situations and all these initiatives in everyday life. And if you agree or disagree with them, like that, whatever, I'm not opining on that. I just think that she does a really good job of like showing the integrated into our everyday life. And just because it's integrated doesn't mean it's only about that. It's about the people. I think she did a really nice job about this. I rated this book 4 stars on Goodreads, but I think I could bump it up to 4.5. I just really, really liked it. So it is kind of heavy. So just as a quick little FYI, I like heavy. So I really enjoyed it. Book 4 for the month is I'm Medusa by Anya Gray. A retelling of the story of Medusa. Side note, I know absolutely zero Greek mythology lore. All right, so I primarily listened to this on audiobook because I wanted to get some stuff done. And I thought it was really good. Audiobooks are really hit or miss for me. I have really severe ADHD. Auditory processing is not my main form of learning. That's okay. This book was great. Fantasy books sometimes are really hard for me because like seeing the world or whatever, but this one, no problem. She paints a really good picture. She explains things in detail without being too detailed. The story, Medusa, or Medi, as she's called in the book, is the youngest immortal sister of 2 immortal sisters, Stenos and Euryale. Shout out to the audiobook. And then their parents are the sea gods Phorcys and Ceto. And now they just have like their little island that they're in charge of, and the people that live on the island. So they're still like gods in their own sense, but Poseidon is the sea god, and he overruled all of the ocean and the sea, which includes this island. All the Olympians overall, though, they're like gods, right? And so they're all worshipped and respected. And basically we follow Medi through her life, and she is this lifelong learner. She wants to constantly experience new things and leave the island. She wants to spread her wings and fly. She doesn't ever see that she's gonna get this chance to, and unless she would get married, and she's mortal, so that probably wouldn't happen anyway. So early on in the book, one of her sisters gets engaged off to this real piece of shit guy. Shocker. And before she can leave, this guy dies in mysterious circumstances. And I won't go into detail, but this is a catalyst for Medi to get an invitation from Athena to come to Athens and study under her as an acolyte to potentially become a priestess for her. Because Athena feels like Medi has the qualities and skills that she looks for in her priestesses. Medusa's out. She's like, I'm going to Athens to study under Athena. Peace out, bros. I'll catch you on the flippity flip. Goes to Athens, which is so cool. Like, you're in the beginning of the book, you're kind of like, I don't know if she's ever gonna, like, what are we doing here? But she goes to Athens, and that's pretty fun. And so she meets these other acolytes, and it's never explicitly said, but it's very heavily implied that Medusa is black. And not that that's like the part of the book to focus on, but it's the fact that the other acolytes are like, oh my gosh, like, she's so different. She doesn't look like us. She's not from Athens. And it's very clear that, like, she's getting a lot of judgment based on her appearance. And there's one of the acolytes named Apollonia who does not judge her. And she's like, hey, Athena wouldn't have invited her here if she didn't deserve it, yada, yada. You know, logic. Being a good person, we love to see it. Medi and Apollonia become really good friends, and they go through these challenges that all the acolytes have to go through in order to move on to become a priestess. Think of it kind of like as an intellectual survivor situation. So if you fail a challenge, then you're out. They go through all of that, and that's a fairly good chunk of the book, I would say. Side note, love interests really aren't like a thing that are brought up in this book. Medi is one of the most sheltered characters I've ever read, and it's super clear that she doesn't even know what sex is, let alone like why someone would want to do that. She's 17 in this book. Like that, while this book is like a fantasy book, break me thought, whatever, that is the low-key the fakest part of this book. Like, what are you telling me right now? I don't know. If you don't know the story of Medusa, I really won't like ruin it for you as to like why things happen or what leads to her becoming the monster that she turns into. But she does get turned into a monster by Athena because something happens that Athena doesn't agree with. And Athena's like, you're no longer beautiful. Zip, zip. Her hair are snakes. She can turn people into stone when she looks at them, and she is no longer beautiful. This is the traditional Medusa monster. But in this book, Medusa's sisters also become monsters in the same capacity. So snake hair, turn people to stone. They're called Gorgons, and they live on this island now by themselves because their parents have fled because they're so traumatized by it and ashamed. And they also realize that they can hone the power of turning people to stone. So, like, if eventually they're like, oh, if I don't want to turn you into stone, I just won't. Which somehow makes it so much better to me when they do turn people, specifically men, to stone. Because it's like, they actively chose to do that. Medi is then trapped again, right? Like in her home island, because she can't leave. She's a monster, and people are scared of her, and she's like this outcast. Well, clearly they can't just live forever in harmony on their island, the three of them, because a man has to come try to conquer the island because it's just these three little ladies here. Actually, Medusa does start to question like the motives of her sisters of like, why are we continuing to kill these people? What's the point of this? And in doing so, she kind of opens the door to like a potential like end to her life. I kind of wish that it would have been a little bit more built out, so that way there's some more like drama or more resolution. But overall, I think that if you like mythology, or if you're kind of dipping your toe into the fantasy world, I would really try this out, and I would really recommend the audiobook. Okay, book 5 of my month was Yesteryear, which was a book that I read for one of my book clubs. This is easily like the buzziest book that I've read in a really long time. It just came out. It's about Natalie, an influencer who is a trad wife to her husband Caleb, and they live on a ranch called Yesteryear Ranch. So cute. And they have this whole gaggle of children. That's the funniest part of this book to me, is that she just keeps having kids throughout this whole book. This book was so fun in probably a toxic way. But Natalie was like the easiest character to hate. Like, no problem doing it. It's so interesting because Caro Burke writes her in a way that's like not in the way of like, oh, I hate this character, I don't want to read them anymore. It's like, I hate them, I need to keep reading them, which is such a it's such a difficult character to write, right? Like, you want to write a character that people are rooting for, but that's not Natalie. Natalie is this character that is just so awful. And I loved her. I loved how awful she was. I needed to get more of her life story. I wanted her opinions. I wanted everything. She was just so easy to like devour as this character. And I think that was the point, right? Like, that's what every influencer wants. It doesn't matter if you love or hate me, just continue to consume my content. And Caro does such a good job doing that. She created this character that is the epitome of an influencer. Anyway, so back to the book. One day Natalie wakes up and she thinks she's in the 1800s. I think thinks she's in like 1855. And she sees these kids that look kind of like her kids, but they're not. And her husband looked kind of like her husband, but he's not. And now she has to be an actual like traditional wife, like churn the butter, cook the meals, wear the same clothes every day. Like, it's just these things that are monotonous and simple for sure, but hard. And there's a reason why I think that we forget, or like we want to go back because we've romanticized it. Spoiler alert, she fucking hates being a traditional wife back in the day. I could go down so many different rabbit holes with this book because there's so many different areas that Burke goes into or like sets up a story to like have an opinion about or like say something with. And I think that's really great. It's also kind of a detriment because she's trying to say almost too much in the book, that she doesn't ever explore something fully to give an opinion. While this is a satire, it is very close what I think real life is like for influencers nowadays. I do think that this facade of perfection is absolutely unrealistic. And then we as the influencers, like I'm an influencer, and then the influencers then almost like fault you for not being able to live this wildly unrealistic life. Like, it's your fault. Like, look, I'm doing it, so you can do it too. But in the book, like, you can find, like, there's 2 nannies, there's a producer, they have farmhands. Like, there's so many things that are working against you that they just don't want to tell you. So overall, I just really think that the book paints this great picture that allows the average non-influencer person to see kind of like the under the hood as to like what the makings of it look like. It's one, a good reminder that what we see on the internet is not necessarily real, and 2, it's okay to not be this like picture perfect person. There's so many areas though that I think that this book touches on that are so impactful, and maybe I'll talk about them in like a different video, but like the gender roles, the impacts of social media on families and relationships and the individual perception, classism, the ability to romanticize the past. Like, this was so many things baked into one book. It makes for a great book club read. It really, really does, because everyone's going to take away something else. It's just so interesting to hear like what people take away from it. Overall, I gave this book 5 stars. So then, to round out my month of May, I finished with The Shining by Stephen King. So I love horror books. Let me just add that kind of like as a stipulation right now. I love books that are creepy and scary and make you feel uncomfortable and kind of push the bounds of certain topics. I love that. That is like my niche. And so I was so stoked to read like the most iconic horror novel in history. And I just didn't like it. Follow Jack Torrance, his wife Wendy, and their 5-year-old son Danny as they go to the Overlook Hotel in Colorado, where Jack is going to be the caretaker over the winter. because it's off season and the hotel's closed and someone needs to stay there so that way the hotel doesn't like implode, right? Well, obviously the hotel's haunted because it's a horror novel. Danny also has this special power, which is called The Shining, where he can, like, low-key see the future and, like, read people's minds and, like, just get, like, the vibes of everything that's happening around him without talking. We really follow the antics of the hotel, and we see Jack slowly descend into madness. He is a recovering alcoholic, and I think that the book really highlights the addictive mind pretty well. Of that slow descent into madness. Don't get me wrong, it was a good book. I would never tell someone to not read it because it is good, and I think that I just am not the reader for it. I do have some pretty big qualms. These are hot takes. That's okay. One, Stephen King loves to give a bunch of examples about stuff that really only need one example to hit home appropriately. What do you mean, Lucy? What the fuck was up with the hedge animals? We needed one, maybe two examples of how these hedge animals like came to life and were so scary and evil and the hotel infected them and took back. We get it. There was like 5 examples of that. I was like, dude, I get it. The hedge animals are creepy. I'm not here for it either. Second, and this is my biggest qualm, Danny is 5 years old. And he is a pivotal character for this book. I'm not saying that kids can't be a pivotal character in a book, but a fucking 5-year-old is the critical thinker to solve the problem of the scary, insanity-inducing hotel. You're kidding. You're absolutely kidding. Some of the lines that Danny has in the book, I'm just like, I don't think that there are grown men who could articulate those thoughts. It was so unrealistic. It drove me bananas. Like, it just didn't make sense why he had to be 5. Have him be 10, and that's already better. Like, that's at least more realistic to me. And, like, a 10-year-old could still have an imaginary friend. 5? That's like a toddler. That really bothered me, if you can't tell. Finally, I just think that the book was like a little bit too long. I just get to the point. Like, let the book be scary, let the situation be creepy, and then move on. I think that's just the ADHD in me talking, because overall it was fine. I just think that I'm not the reader for Stephen King, and I'm not like signing off of him forever. But I did watch the movie, kind of. I fell asleep during it because I was really tired and we watched it at nighttime. So we'll watch that again and give it a go and I'll report back. But I gave it 3 stars. So that's my like unhinged opinion of one of the, if not the most iconic horror novels in history. Mid. It was mid. Around out the whole month, I will give you my good, my bad, and my unhinged take. So my good was obviously Yesteryear. It was just a really fun read, a lot to unpack here, good for discussion, and I love when people have really strong opinions and thoughts and ideas. So this was a great book for that. The bad, I wouldn't necessarily say it was bad, but it just kind of was like the most forgettable of my month, and that was Imposter. It was okay. And my most unhinged take is that The Shining is a 3-star book. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. So anyway, if you want to hear more hot takes on books, have strong opinions on them, and want to share, please hit subscribe below. And I'm just really excited to go on this journey with you guys.